Who was here before Columbus? I mean, aside from Columbus. Let's find out. Christopher Columbus, Italian explorer who sailed across the Atlantic Ocean and reached the Americas in 1492. But let me interrupt myself. Over the next few thousand years, more and more people began raising crops and livestock, building permanent villages. At its center was the city of Monk's Mound, home to some 20,000 people in what is today the American Bottom near the confluence of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers in present-day Illinois. Further southwest in the Four Corners region where Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico meet, the ancestral Pueblones built impressive cliff dwellings and stone cities. By the year 1400, 5 distinct but related nations had formed a powerful union known as the Iroquois Confederacy, also called the Haudenosaunee. No, there were dozens of Native American societies with complex systems of governance, religion, and economy. So let's quickly review some of the major takeaways. First, don't think of Native Americans as a monolithic group. There were hundreds of distinct societies with their own cultures and traditions. Second, don't picture Native Americans as living in the Stone Age. They farmed, built impressive cities, and even developed advanced technologies like irrigation systems and Third, don't assume that America was an empty wilderness. Native Americans managed the landscape through controlled burns and sustainable agriculture. And finally, don't forget that Native Americans were here first. They were the original inhabitants of this land, and their history dates back thousands of years. So before you ask who was here before Columbus, remember, everyone. To learn more about some of them, check out Crash Course Native America, created by Digital Studio and Nature. It is an 8-part documentary series that takes you across the United States to explore the rich histories of the indigenous peoples who have lived on this land for thousands of years. You'll explore iconic places like Chaco Canyon, Canyon de Chelly, and the Great Smoky Mountains, and learn about the Chumash people of California and their impressive seafaring, the Choctaw people of Mississippi and their interactions with Hernando de Soto and the first European to explore the interior of the United States. You'll even see artifacts that haven't been seen by the public in generations. In addition to the incredible cinematography and storytelling, one of my favorite things about this series is that it highlights the diversity of Native American cultures. Just like any region of the world, North America was full of individual societies with their own unique traditions, beliefs, and art. Their name roughly translates to people of the Long House, which refers to the long, narrow dwellings that could house many families under one roof. While the Iroquois did farm, hunting and gathering played a big part in their lives. The men of the tribe would venture out into the forest with bows and arrows to hunt deer, bear, elk, and other wild game. Women, meanwhile, gathered nuts, berries, and fruit. The Iroquois were also skilled astronomers, keeping track of the seasons by observing the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. This knowledge helped them plan their planting and harvesting of crops such as corn, beans, and squash. They even developed a unique writing system to record astronomical data and historical events. The Iroquois Confederacy was a democracy, perhaps the oldest in the world. Its great law of peace established a representative government with a parliament, courts, and an elected chief. The document outlining this system of government is believed to have greatly influenced the framers of the U.S. Constitution. Today, we refer to these people as the Pueblo people and their ancestral homes as the Four Corners Pueblo. One of the most popular examples of their engineering skills is Mesa Verde, which means green table in Spanish. These multi-story buildings were made of stone and mortar without the use of metal tools, and they perfectly blended into the natural landscape. Archaeologists have uncovered over 600 cliff dwellings in the area. The ancestral Pueblones primarily grew corn, beans, squash, and cottonwood trees, building irrigation canals to water their fields and store food for the dry season. While archaeologists haven't found much evidence of large cities among the ancestral Pueblones, they did discover many great works of art, including over 20,000 petroglyphs, or markings carved into rock. But around the year 1300, for reasons that remain unknown, the ancestral Pueblones abandoned their cliff dwellings and moved away, leaving behind their homes and all of their possessions. At its peak around the year 1200, Cahokia was larger than London. In fact, its central plaza was nearly the size of the entire city of Rome, and the enormous earthen pyramids dominated the skyline. But while the Native American mounds are often mistaken for burial sites, archaeologists have found no evidence of human remains inside them. Instead, The mounds served as platforms for temples and wooden structures housing priests and chiefs. The Mississippians grew corn, beans, and squash, which archaeologists refer to as the Three Sisters, and supplemented their diet with fish from the nearby rivers and trails. Cahokia boasted the busiest trade network of any city in North America, moving more goods than even the Inca or Aztec. Its citizens traded everything from seashells gathered along the Gulf Coast to obsidian from as far away as Mexico. And because the abundance of resources in the region encouraged specialization, craftspeople produced high-quality goods like copper bracelets from metal mined in Wisconsin, as well as intricate artwork and textiles. And eventually, several powerful empires rose to prominence across the land. Let's rewind a bit to just before his famous voyage, and there are two main theories. First, most scientists believe that around 13,000 years ago, during the height of the last ice age, much of the world was covered in thick sheets of ice. This created a land bridge between eastern Siberia and what is today the state of Alaska called Bering. People likely crossed this land bridge and brought with them the ancestors of domestic dogs, as well as the animals whose bones they would soon be following: mammoths, mastodons, bison, horses, camels, and reindeer. As these large animals roamed, so did the people, following their herds for food and shelter. They adapted to the environment, learning which plants were edible, which animals were safe to eat, and how to build warm, sturdy homes. It should be noted, however, that this was just one theory. There is evidence of humans along the Pacific coast of North and South America, suggesting that people may have migrated here by boat using the Pacific and coastal currents traveling along the coast, riding waves of kelp and canoes made from giant reeds. This is known as the coastal migration theory, because right around here, just before Columbus showed up, there were millions of people living across the land we today call the United States. In fact, there were hundreds of distinct societies, each with their own languages, belief systems, and ways of life. They had cities. They farmed, hunted, fished, traded with each other over vast distances, and generally kick-started a few continents' worth of civilizations. And I can only scratch the surface of their accomplishments in this one video. So, let's get started. Before we jump into the major Native American civilizations, let us first take a brief look at how the very first people came to be in the Americas. In any case, once the ice melted around 11,000 years ago, it is thought that most of these early peoples settled down and became farmers. One of the largest of these was the Mississippian culture, also known as. But the Mississippians weren't the only Native American civilization with thriving cities. Farther east in the northeast woodlands, yet another Native American civilization thrived. The Iroquois Confederacy wasn't the only society with a written constitution, nor was Cahokia the only city with an organized government and trade network. We covered a lot in this video, and barely scratched the surface of the incredibly rich history of Native Americans.